Yeah. Anyway, hello. This is your fish obsessed friend here in all of this scruffy glory. And today we're going to be discussing fish baits. In this video, I want to discuss different types of baits for different types of fish. So these are going to vary, and they might even overlap a little bit in terms of effectiveness. So let's get started. The first set of baits that I want to discuss is a catfish baits. The first set of baits that I am going to be discussing in this video is catfish baits, baits for catfish primarily at the moment. So liver is one of those baits. Liver is a great bait. Just catching catfish in general. Yeah, catfish will bite liver pretty much whenever a chance they get, if they're feeling up to it. It's very cheap bait. Liver can be found pretty much anywhere. It's $1 to $2 a pound, I believe, at any grocery store, believe it or not. And it's a pretty good, it's pretty easy to find too. The only downside to there's a couple of downsides to liver, and the biggest one is it's a soft bait. It's softness. It's a very soft bait. So when you put it on the hook and throw it out on the lake, there's a very high chance of it flying off your hook and just, flying into the lake, which you don't want. You're just throwing your money off into the lake for, just throwing your money away basically at that point. There are a couple of different ways to negate that downside. You can, for example, cure your bait. Curing chicken liver will make it tougher, and in some cases make it more attractive to catfish, which is great because you want to attract those fish, but it's also great because it won't stay on the hook easier. Another method, and my favorite method, is egg loop knots. The egg loop knot is my knot I showed in my first video, and what basically is you tie a knot onto the hook, and you can then use that knot to trap or bind any baits you have, any soft baits like chicken liver or even eggs you have to the hook, and it will, you can throw it as pretty much hard as possible, and and the chances of it falling off are pretty slim. So that's a great method. There are other methods, but I'm not going to go into too much detail about them on chicken liver. But chicken liver is a great bait. And the other downside of chicken liver is that it's once catfish get big enough, they'll kind of gravitate away towards baits like chicken liver. Catfish are primarily predators, hunters, so their preferred food is usually smaller bait fish like bluegill or shad, or heck, even smaller, like just small carp or any fish, just small fish anything they can get their mouths on, basically. Bait fish are great baits for catching catfish. Bait fish can be found anywhere a catfish is, basically. I mean bait fish. When I say bait fish, I mean a little small brim-like fish, like bluegill, crappie, like bluegill or crappie. They are, catfish love these little fish, and they can great to eat. And if you put a little fish on your hook and throw it out far enough, you will probably catch a catfish. And these are great for catching bigger catfish, primarily bigger catfish like flatheads or, just larger size catfish. The smaller catfish would go for smaller catfish. Their diet is a bit more diverse, as I would say. The only downside that I can think of with bait fish is that they're not really easy to find. At least fresh bait fish is easy to find. You can catch fresh bait fish, but obviously that's easier said than done. And in my experience, bait fish that are found in shops and stuff like that are like preserved in bags aren't usually that great, at least in my opinion. At least in my personal experience, I don't know if anybody has ever really caught a lot of fish on bait fish that you find in the fisheries or shops that are like preserved, like the fish that you find on the shelves. Another bait, catfish bait, that's a great catfish bait, is corn. I have here a can of sweet corn. Sweet corn is a great catfish bait, particularly in packed baits, which I'm going to be discussing. a little later on. But catfish love corn. Like I said, catfish are opportunistic, and they are omnivores too. So they will eat pretty much anything. And corn is something a lot of fish like corn, but especially catfish and carp too. I'm gonna talk about carp a little later. But yeah, the last bait I want to discuss from catfish is stink baits. A lot of people like to use stink baits for catfish, but I'm not a big fan of stink baits. One, because they stink. Yeah, they're not pleasant to smell, not really pleasant. And, you know, catfish don't usually go for stink baits. It's kind of hit or miss for me whether or not the catfish would go for the stink baits or the smelly baits. I personally don't like using them because my success is kind of wanes with stink baits. I'm not saying that it doesn't work, because it does, but it does work. But I don't highly recommend it. The next baits I'm going to talk about is carp baits. They primarily eat grainy / oaty, foods, stuff like cereal or grits or like other, like grainy kind of foods. So I have here a couple of carp baits, carp bait ingredients, carp pack bait ingredients, more specifically. And pack baits are basically chum baits that you put on, that you wrap around the hook, or that you stick your hook in the middle of these chum baits, and you throw these ball baits and you throw them out into the river or lake. And once it sinks to the bottom, the river, the water they will dissolve the ingredients that you have in those chum baits. And once you dissolve the ingredients, the ingredients dissolve as a nice little pile on the floor of the river or lake. And the fish, they love that. They will see that, and they will eat that little pile of bait. And in the middle of that pile is your hook and whatever bait's on that hook. And once the fish eats that, then that's when you know you have a fish on. So yeah, the first ingredient that I'm going to discuss for pack baits is the hook baits. This here is like a kind of health food cereal. I'm gonna stick the brand up there on the screen for the video so people can see what brand it is. So in case they want to use this brand, they can see it on the screen. But this is great. I love this. This is kind of health food cereal, like a corn pop cereal. I've caught a lot of carp on this bait, and it's never failed me, not even once. It's a really good bait. If you don't want to go for this brand, you cannot. If you can't find this brand anywhere, it's understandable if you can't find it. You can go for corn pops. I know that this is everywhere. Corn pop cereal, that cereal. And this also works for carps. It's a little bit smaller, but it's the same thing. You just put it on the hook and they will go for it. The last thing I'm going to go into when discussing pack baits is the attractants for the bait. Now, there are tons and tons, hundreds of attractants out there that people use in their pack baits. They're literally everywhere. I'm going to link in the description. A very popular brand of attractants for carp, and I've used these before, and they work. And pretty much every other fisherman or fishery shop, they sell this brand of carp attractants, and I'm gonna link their website in the description. I highly recommend them. But if you want to go for a cheaper option, because I'm always gonna give you guys the cheaper option, I have you can just buy the Jello or any anything like that. This is a Jello brand Jello. This is vanilla. Carp love vanilla, but they also really love strawberry, and the red flavors are really good too, like strawberry and cherry. If you want to go just a tiny bit cheaper, like I said, always have the cheaper option. Is for the second time, I got this great value. There's a couple of these products are great value, but this is a great value chocolate. And It's Great Value is a little bit cheaper than Jello brand, but they're both relatively cheap options. The last bait that I'm going to discuss that everybody knows about, that every fish under the sun will go for, is worms. The one that I think is the best is the red worms. The red worms, or red wigglers, that's what we like to call them down here in the South. They're very, like, the red wiggle. And the reason why we say that, call them wigglers, is because when you stick them on the hook, they start going crazy. The worms, they will start moving around like crazy. And when you throw the worms out into the water, they will still move around and go crazy in the water. And fish see worms wiggling around in the water, wiggling in that, you know, that movement, and they cannot resist that. They cannot resist that sight. They will go for that worm. There's also night crawlers. Night crawlers are a lot bigger than red wiggler worms. Than the red worms. They are, but they're very sluggish worms though. They don't move out. They don't move a lot, which means they're not very particularly attractive to a fish underwater. I mean, they'll still eat them, obviously. The crawlers are great, also great bait for fish. There are still worms after all, but they don't wiggle around as much. And fish, the worms that move underwater, and they will go for that. They also tend to die pretty quickly underwater as well. Some worms they tend to die a lot quicker, especially if they're non-native worms. They don't tend to survive. They don't survive very well for long. They don't survive very well out of their natural environment or habitat. Just to be clear, these are baits that are primarily working on fish that live in like rivers or canals or lakes. I'm not not talking about saltwater fish or any, ocean fish or anything like that. I'm not saying that none of these baits will work on saltwater fish, but I mean, if you want to throw your oats in the water, then go ahead. But I can't guarantee that these will work on, other fish. That concludes this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or concerns, please comment, and I will answer them in the best way that I can. And again, there's a couple, I'm gonna link in the description some attractants for carp baits. They work really well, and I've seen pretty much every fisherman use them, whether they be out on the lake or somebody on YouTube. They use these baits. I mean, these fish attractants quite a lot, and scent attractants, for carp, because it's really important that you have a scent attractant one for carp bait, because that's how carp primarily get their food. They smell it, Anyway, that's the end of the video, so take care.